Number 2. Last year, we were 25th in the league in points scored. And I want to give a shout out to somebody that brought this up on another show. Charles Hardy, my guy, Charles Hardy, asked a question on my podcast. And I think it was on a social media maneuver. And he just said, hey, how many points do you think we're going to average this year? And I was like, that's a great question. I don't know. Hard to say. A lot of, moving parts, a lot of different factors that go into that equation. And also you got to also factor in the defense, because the NFL doesn't extract defensive touchdowns and things of that nature from points scored per game. Anyway, Charles's question got me to thinking. We were so awful scoring the football last year. I just told you we were 25th in the league. We scored 20.9 points per game last year. So essentially 21 points a game. That's going to get you beat most weeks, by the way. Okay. The rule for me has always been, in order to have a chance, you need to score 24 every game. Anything under 24, you are asking to get beat. I went and did some numbers crunching. I got my crack staff on the numbers. And last year, one of the things we talked about, I remember asking you guys this question very vividly. I said, guys, what did you learn about championship weekend? What did you learn about this team in particular? I remember asking that question. Do you guys remember that? And I think the answer I gave, and I think the answer I heard the most from all of you out there, and I can't remember specifically, I know what I said. The lack of explosiveness is what I gleaned from championship weekend. The 4 teams that were in that game that were left, a lot of you, I remember what a lot of you said. A lot of you said, we need a quarterback. Okay, that's what you guys got from that. You saw Allen versus Mahomes in one conference, and you saw Brady versus Rodgers in the other conference. You was like, we need a quarterback. That's what a lot of you said. I said, we need to be more explosive. I saw 4 teams that in a blink of an eye could score a touchdown from anywhere on the field. At any time, doesn't matter. Brady literally with 7 seconds on the clock before halftime throws a bomb to Scotty Miller for a touchdown right before half. No regard for the clock or anything like that. No regard for the Packers defense. Gets an opportunity, takes it, scores a touchdown. Just like that. Mahomes and company, I think they were down 9-0 against the Bills in their game. Erased that with ease. They started that game out slow. I think they got a fumble from their returner. What's the receiver from Georgia? I can't think of his name. Fast-ass receiver. He fumbled a punt. The Bills ended up scoring some points off of that. They fell down 9-0, I think, and that's nothing. They ran that down in a heartbeat. I said all of that to say, we got to score points. Last year, we got by because we got to play some really bad teams last year, which gave us a chance. We got to play Nick Mullins in the San Francisco 49ers. We got to play the Bengals, who were one of the worst teams, with Joe Burrow. Well, he gets hurt to start the third quarter in a game that they were in, and we get their backup. And we get to destroy him for the remainder of the game and cruise to a 20-9 victory. Was never in doubt once, I think it was Finley that came in. Never in doubt when Finley got in there. We knew we had the game at that point. We got to see JMU once. We got to see Andy Dalton for a half, and then JMU came in the second half. Then we got Andy Dalton the second time. We had Jalen Hurts for a game. We got Carson Wentz for a game, and he was struggling. We had some advantageous situations put in front of us. Shit, we had Daniel Jones twice, and we didn't take advantage. We had Teddy Bridgewater. We dropped the ball there. But it allowed our defense to gain confidence. Unfortunately, the offense could not say the same. This year, we have to score points. We'll give you a couple of interesting stats, and then I'm going to tell you how many points it's going to take for Washington to be in the discussion of a postseason team. All 9 playoff teams last year, the top 9 in points scored per game last season, the top 9 teams all made the playoffs. Remember, only 14 teams make it. 9 of the 14 were among the top 9 in scoring. 28.2 points per game or more were those top 9 teams. The final 4 teams in the postseason, Packers, Bucks, Bills, Chiefs, all scored 29.6 points or more. The Packers and the Bucks were among the league leaders. They were up over 30 points a game. I think over 31 points per game. But all 4 of those teams scored 29.6 points or more a game. So damn near 30 a game, essentially. That's not us. That's not what I'm asking us to do. But what I am saying is, in order to have a chance to win double-digit games and make the postseason, we're going to have to score a lot more points than the 20.9 points per game we put up last year. That's not good enough. 20.9 points is going to get us exactly what we got last year. 7-9 last year, 7-10 this year. And I'm telling you, 7 wins isn't going to get us anywhere this year. We got lucky last year. I look at the Miami Dolphins as the perfect blueprint for what we want to do this upcoming year. And it's ironic that we have the quarterback that they had on their roster last year. But to me, they're the blueprint for what we want to do this year. The Dolphins won double-digit games. How did they do that? They won the turnover battle. That's one thing. And they scored 25.6 points a game last year. Now, they still missed the postseason, but that's because they played in a crazy conference. They bring that same 10-6 to the NFC side of the bracket. They're in the postseason. So my number 2 for Washington, score 25.5 points per game. They do that, coupled with the defense we think we're going to be able to play, that should win us double-digit games. 25.5 points per game or more. You got a chance for a big season. That's a whole 5 more points, essentially. 4 and some change, but closer to 5 more points than we scored a season ago per game. And number 1, numero uno. I just brought this up, but it bears mentioning again. Mecole Hardman, thank you, Rich, is the name of that Chiefs wide receiver that I couldn't think of that fumbled in the AFC Championship game. Turnover differential. We can't talk about this enough. We talk about it every single game, but we ignore it in the grand scheme of things. Plus or minus. It's a big effing deal, man. That's one of my favorite stats. A lot of people like to throw out these crazy stats. Well, under the last 5 minutes of the game in a dome on turf against the blitz, he's completing passes. His QBR is 107.8. Oh, okay. That's great, man. That's an awesome stat. I don't care about that stat. You can have that stat. You can go play fantasy football with that stat. You know what I care about? This stat right here, turnover differential. You know why? Because this is tried and true. This will never change. This will always be relevant and meaningful. You'll always be able to connect the dots to who makes the postseason and turnover differential. 11 of the 14 playoff teams last year, +4 or better, meaning they had more takeaways, 4 or more takeaways than they did giveaways. So giveaways are when you turn the ball over. That's a minus. And I know a lot of you already understand this, but for some of you, you may not. And takeaways are when you take the ball away from the opposition. Those are pluses. You want more pluses than minuses. 11, let me say that again. 11 of the 14 playoff teams last season were +4 or better. Think about that for a second. Over 80% of the playoff teams a season ago were +4 or better in the turnover differential. You want to know the 3 teams that weren't +3 in the turnover differential? The Bears, who barely got in and promptly were disposed of in wild card weekend. The Rams, who got rid of Jared Goff for that exact reason. He turned it over too much and compromised them on offense. And of course, yours truly, the Washington football team, who promptly were disposed of in wild card weekend at home as well. Every other team in the postseason, +4 or better. That leads me to this point. If Washington wants to have a legitimate shot at making the postseason, whether that's win the division or make it through the back door as a wild card, they've got to be +5 or better in the turnover differential in 2021. And I'm baking into this discussion the fact that Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to turn over the football. So what I'm essentially saying is the defense has to be much better at forcing turnovers than they were a season ago. We didn't force a lot of turnovers. Nobody really talks about that. We didn't have a ton of giveaways last year. Alex Smith, I think, was the quarterback. I take that back. Dwayne, he was giving the shit away at an alarming rate early in the season. I think he might have had like 13 interceptions. Let me see. Let me look up Dwayne Haskins' stats from last year. Because I think Dwayne might have had 13 interceptions, and then he fumbled at least 4 or 5 damn times last year as well. Let's see. No, he only had 7 interceptions. Okay. 7 interceptions. He probably had about 5 or 6 fumbles to go along with those 7 interceptions. But Alex Smith had more interceptions. I think he had like 8 interceptions. We keep talking about Alex Smith takes care of the football. His ass to turn this shit over at an alarming rate for his for what he does, for his standards. He was turning this shit over last year. I think he had about 8 interceptions. He had let's see. He had 8 interceptions. I was right. 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions last year. So between Alex's 8, Dwayne's 7, and I want to say Kyle Allen, we know he had one against the Giants. He didn't play in very many games. He didn't have one against the Cowboys. He didn't have one against the Rams. He got hurt against the Giants the second time around. I don't think he threw in any interceptions in that game. So he had 1 interception, I think. Kyle Allen, I think he ended up being like 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Let's check. We don't have to guess. I know he threw 2 touchdown passes against the Giants. And then he had another 2, I think, against the Cowboys. But let's just check. No need in guessing. 4 and 1. I'm good at this shit, man. So he had 1. He had 4 touchdowns. That's 13 that's 16, 8 for Alex, 7 for Dwayne, another one for Kyle. That's 16. And then you got to factor in the fumbles. So that's not a lot of turnovers, though, guys. Antonio Gibson wasn't a fumbler. J.D. McKissick wasn't a fumbler. You know, we did have some special teams mishaps, but we didn't turn the ball over a ton. Like, that wasn't a bugaboo necessarily. The defense just didn't force a ton of turnovers. We had, and think about this, we forced a boatload of turnovers in week 1. How many times did we pick Carson Wentz off? 3? And a fumble? I think we forced a fumble and recovered that. We forced what, 4 or 5 turnovers in week 1? That was the watermark of the season. That and the 49ers game. You take those 2 games out of the equation, well, shit. How many turnovers did we really force? We forced, what, 3 against the 49ers? Scoop and score a fumble, a pick 6, and I want to say we forced another fumble. Might have been just 2. Either way, I said all of that to say this. The defense, I'm putting the onus on the defense. Generate takeaways. We know Fitzpatrick, if he plays, he's going to turn the shit over. You've got to not only offset the turnovers that he's going to have, you've got to then exceed that. I'm putting the onus on the defense. +5 or better in the turnover differential category. If we want to be successful, those are my 5 keys to Washington being successful in the upcoming 2021 season. So, all right. If you haven't already done so, I want to go ahead. We got some super chats, so I'm going to get to those here in a second. But if you haven't already done so, I want to encourage you right now to hit the subscribe button for more great content. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And to also be sure to hit the like button. Doesn't cost you anything, doesn't hurt you, but it definitely helps the Louie T Network. Can't thank you guys enough. Louie T.